where could it possibly be? But today's been a day of losing stuff. So I've already lost like loads of stuff in Ubers and whatever. It's been a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, it is what it is. Welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It is episode 311, and today we've got a very super interesting show for you, and it's always interesting to have this conversation because we want to try and like periodically get a sense check as to what the situation is when it comes down to investment into WorkTech. I think we can learn a lot as to how venture capital is essentially behaving when it comes to where they're placing their bets. And today's show is all going to be about trying to figure out, okay, what is the investment market looking like? Where is the money going? And within the WorkTech segment itself, where is the VCs? Where are they placing their chips? And does that tell us anything about the shape of how people think about organizations? So that is the topic of today's show, folks. Anyway, let's do some sound checks real quick just to make sure everyone can hear us okay. Folks, if you're going to hear us on Crowdcast, let me know whether the audio and video is fine here. You should be able to see us on the should be able to see and hear Adam and me actually on the Crowdcast here. We're broadcasting this live on LinkedIn, of course. You're watching this on Hung Lee's LinkedIn, maybe on Adam Gordon's LinkedIn as well. I believe Rob Walker, you're also on LinkedIn, which is great stuff. If you're watching it on any of those LinkedIn folks, do let us know in comments what the story is there. Can you hear us and see us okay? Drop us a comment, let us know. Okay, cool. Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. Okay, we have Adam Gordon back with us. Long time no see, it seems, Adam. Where have you been, mate? You've been MIA, it seems.
Just NFI, not invited. I'm
Don't know
always
why that is,
available.
mate. It's
Yeah,
probably
no.
due to you're traveling with rugby, or you being on holiday somewhere or whatnot. But you're back, which is I'm delighted to hear. Anyway, that's all good. Oh, by the way, let's just talk real quick about. We may as well review the newsletter real quick, minus Mary Mika, because I think you're right. We probably need to give that like a separate treatment. Folks, if you didn't read Mary Mika's Internet Trends, or AI Trends as it's now called, a massive 390-page slide deck, you should do that. And we will drop a link into the chat stream so you can review it, because it is a substantive bit of research and her return really back to the mainstream, having not done it for a couple of years. And yeah, you got to read it. Basically, tells you where we're at in terms of how AI is being adopted. So I'll share the link in the chat stream there. But aside from that, Adam, what else was interesting? What's worth discussing real quick before we get on with the show?
I mean, it is hard this week because there was so many, as I said in my message to you earlier today. So let's start with McKinsey's like new or suggested operating model for people management. So the emphasis that they wanted to really put forward was around agility, personalization, digital integration. And I think the key highlights would be agile HR structures, personalized employee experiences, and better digital enablement, which nods towards the concept of AI agents, for example, which I'll come on to in a summary of another entry within recruiting Brainfood. But certainly, I thought that anything that McKinsey produces to do with the people function is worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Also with a dose of skepticism, though, because I think that McKinsey are a professional services company, and because of that, like they're quite unusual in the sense that everyone in their business is a fee earner. So all the consultancies were big promoters of skills-based hiring, for instance. But that makes like more perfect sense for a PS company because they all obviously have to rotate internally around all the time, project to project. Does it make the same degree of sense to a company that makes yogurt, for instance? Probably not. There's going to be functions you can't move people around in. So anyway, but always worth keeping an eye on them. I mean, they're intelligent folks and they produce intelligent content and it stimulates the mind. So have a read of that. Share the link in the chat stream there. Okay, cool. What
You're,
else was
you're,
interesting, Adam?
you're talking about Danone, right? The company that makes yogurt.
Yeah, I met with Coase
Saw that.
yesterday, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, it reminded me that making yogurt is a very different type of business than making PowerPoints basically.
Yeah. Let's talk about a new era of workforce design and Chris Hoyt's LinkedIn post. So I've said this, you might remember, I've said this several times in the last, possibly as long as 18 months ago, that um, companies, TA leaders are going to have to either move into like taking over the decision around how to complete the corporate tasks, or they're going to fall into a team that like they're probably going to be working for engineers, is what I've said. Chris Hoyt has written an article about Moderna. Anna Ott wrote a lot about this as well, actually.
Mm.
So Moderna is the first like one that I've seen, which is I'm sure other companies have done it, but they've absolutely merged their digital technology and people functions, because what they've recognized is that I think they've deployed something like 3,000 custom AI agents to automate tasks from like HR related things through to clinical project management and clinical trial design. And like at what point when I was doing a at an event yesterday in Dundee with talent acquisition professionals, and I said, at what point should you be involved? Is it at the point that the hire has been determined that a hire needs to be made, or should it be before that? And they all went, no, before that, before that. We definitely should. But I said, which of you are involved before that? They said there was none of them are. So anyway, TA teams are going to be progressively more merging with digital enablement teams in order to establish, what's the best structure for getting the corporate tasks accomplished. Chris's article suggested that in these transformations, we need to ensure human-centric considerations, which I don't disagree with, but it's going to be very exciting to see how this develops, and it's going to develop fast.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Moderna, obviously, if you haven't kept up with this news, it kind of got hidden a little bit with the workday type of shenanigans last week, and also the release of these big reports. But Workday's merger of HR with like IT, that's like that crazy talk 5 years ago. Like, what would you ever think about doing that for? But the theory is, you know what? Both of those functions are there to support the business and helping the business achieve its objectives, either through technology or through human beings. And it seems that actually, why is that? And that may be like the same decision now these days. The decision making as to how you do it needs to be in a centralized place. Now, caveat upon caveat, Moderna are very tightly associated with OpenAI, and OpenAI do build like directly a lot of their custom agents. So they have an unusual corporate relationship, which gives them sort of maybe the advantages that other businesses might not. But you can imagine, like it's a very interesting vision of what that future looks like. Because I think the decision of whether you build something, use an automated solution, train or hire someone in, all of those are sort of decisions that float around someone's mind. And then it would probably be better for us in TA and HR for us to be making that decision, rather than have a decision made elsewhere and then just simply receive the instruction, because you can see our other functions shrinking if we did that. So I think sort of AI enablement, obviously something we all have to embrace. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring Stan on here for a sec. Stan's sponsor of the show. I forgot to bring him on, actually. He's going to talk to us about it. There's probably very few people, actually, that are more evangelical about this than Stan. And he's got an extremely good, clear vision, clarity of vision in terms of what this all looks like. So why don't we bring Stan on, actually? He'll tell us a little bit about what he's doing and how this kind of, this type of future, what does it look like for us? It's definitely worth having us to have a chew on. And by the way, folks, we do want to make things human-centric, of course. I mean, I think everyone is a human being and aligned to humanity, of course, we should be. But at the same time, I don't think happy talk gets us there. We can't just assume that that's what's going to happen. We've got to really encourage this to happen. So how is that the case? That's the idea. There he is, Stan Vasovich, the man with the most magnificent hair in recruitment technology. Look at the state of this guy. It's amazing. And by the way, Stan, you find it's funny. I was in Amsterdam just earlier today, and I was there yesterday,
I
and I
saw.
saw a guy called Reggie Ebber. I don't know whether you remember Reggie. Reggie is also a Dutch guy, also magnificent hair. Tony de Graaf, another Dutch guy, another guy with magnificent hair. What is happening with the I don't know what's in the water, Stan, but basically the follicles is amazing in the Netherlands. Anyway, Stan, great to see you, mate. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself for the few people who don't know you? Who are you? What it is you do?
Great to be back, Han. I don't know what's up with the hair. Must be the cheese or something. But I've been living in Spain, so it could also be the sun. Um, for those who don't know me, I'm one of the co-founders of Scotty AI. I've been in this space for almost 2 decades, and yeah, right now I'm trying to automate as much of it as I can.
Yeah, fantastic. I've just shared the link to Scotty AI in the chat stream there. Stan, give us a quick, like, high level for people who don't know Scotty. What is it that you do, and what have you done for other businesses?
Yeah, what's happening on a more abstract and broader level is that these AI agents that we've been creating over over the last few years, they're learning how to speak between people, but also between each other and within IT systems. So we're creating these multi-agent systems, and when you do that the right way, then yeah, you're setting yourself up to create an experience that resembles a digital worker. You know, digital workers that can automate end-to-end processes that would otherwise require human intervention. And hiring is one of the most profound ones where this can happen in a very successful manner. And there's a bunch of companies playing into that, and we are one of them.
Yeah, fantastic. And we've talked about this before. I think Adam, you've actually mentioned this is sort of TA and recruiting generally is a very process driven, very sort of task sort of driven type of function. And it's automation might sit very very well in this area. So I guess it's an obvious place to apply artificial intelligence, wouldn't you say, Stan?
Absolutely. And I think the one thing that isn't discussed enough is the improved experience. We're consistently seeing that top talent, and I'm not just talking about high volume, lower complexity type of people, but the top talent, engineers, analysts, financial professionals, and even people at the C level just enjoy speaking to AI agents more than speaking to AI humans in speaking to humans in the hiring process. It's just easier and more effective usually to speak to them to get what you want. So my prediction is that within now and not that long of a time, the best candidates will demand speaking to AI in order to get hired and turn their backs on people that and companies that force them to interact a lot with people.
That's a radical position, Stan, but I expect no less from a man who's prepared to back his opinion. Okay, good stuff. For people who basically want to know more about Scotty, and particularly about sort of the recent things that you've been up to, Stan, can you share a little bit about this? Because we're going to be getting in together next week anyway, and I wonder whether it's worth us just covering that real briefly for folks.
Yeah, I'd love to. So there are two things that I share with everyone on the call. The first one is a link to a post I just did about a sales agent that we've created on top of our platform, because you can create AI agents for any cognitive process, and I'm trying to automate sales in our business as well. This agent is called Sally. It's a play on words. You can actually share your business processes and needs with Sally. Sally will come up with solutions for them, and then you can role play them in real time. And now it's easy to imagine how a year from now, Sally will just build these processes into your IT infrastructure, and you'll be able to use them. That's the long-term play. We can just do that via chat or voice, but definitely talk to Sally to learn about how she can help you and what Scotty does or who I am. She knows more about our business than I do. And then secondly, what Han was alluding to, there's a CIPD in London next week. 11,500 people are gathering for one of the largest HR experiences on the European continent this year, one of the largest in the world. And we've built also on our platform an event agent, Frankie, to support CIPD. So if you're not sure if you want to go, or if you're going and you want to know what's good for you to do there, talk to Frankie. You can do it in 3 web-based environments. We kind of want to demo how you can use those. And it will make sure that you have the best day you can possibly have.
Yeah, and is that the factory.scottytechnologies link?
Yeah, that's the second one. That's the web chat, and the other one is just a link to a LinkedIn post I did about Sally. And in that link, you can click a link which will bring you either into WhatsApp. But if you ask Sally to call you, she'll also call you on your mobile phone. You can have the entire conversation in voice. And again, just share your specific business needs and challenges, and she will consult you on them.
Really interesting. CIPD, by the way, folks. I'm actually going to that. I'm surprised. It's actually like free to register. And you should go. I mean, I know sort of HR is, you know, TA HR have this thing. Let's not, you know, let's keep the walls up. Actually, no, folks. We have to learn from each other. It's a free event. 10,000 people plus there. Loads of vendors and there also. Me and Stan are going to be there. Get yourself there. I think it's on Thursday, 2 days. Wednesday, Thursday. I can only go 1 day. But definitely get yourself there if you're in London. Make yourself available. You're going to be speaking to people that will be you need to interface with during you know, now and going on. So absolutely. Okay, go on. I mean, say something.
Yeah, quick question, Stan. So AI agents. Let's say there's 70 processes in recruiting, right? I mean, I can clearly see why, in a lot of circumstances, 50, 60 of them could be delivered by AI agents. But I think there's a lot of areas of recruitment which are idiosyncratic and kind of, it's difficult to put in AI agent solutions. But am I wrong? Are there certain types of companies where like 100% just go down the AI agent route, and then others where it might only be 50%, for example? Or what's your comments on that?
Let's flip it around. What is it, objectively speaking, that humans can do in the hiring process that AI agents cannot, without, you know, having a lunch with someone, although they could do it virtually?
Well, that I mean, that's really the example that I have, because if somebody's in a job not looking for a job, then you probably need some human skills to be able to, you know, generate some empathy with them and like generate some
Which
trust with them.
which ones?
Well, the ones around body language and like being able to deliver uh, empathy and nuance and read exactly how somebody's feeling, not just from the text answers that they write, for example.
So let me touch on all three things. First of all, there are articles in Nature. I'll share them with you, Hans, so you can drop in the newsletter, that prove empirically that AI agents exhibit much more empathy than humans do. Not just that, also situational judgment. And if you want to play around, go to tavis.com, TAVUS. They've developed the first visual models. Actually, look at how you're sitting, your posture, what's happening in the background, what you're wearing, your expressions, um, to understand how you feel and respond to that. So if you look angry, if you look annoyed, if you're smiling, it'll respond to that. And these models are already outperforming humans in most situations. But, and by the way, not just in hiring, but also, for example, patient intakes or other situations where we have very sensitive type of conversations where someone really needs to pay attention. They're already outperforming humans, and they're in their absolute infant stage. Look, my long-term vision, you know about this, guys, is the value of knowledge and the value of cognitive work is going to the value of electricity and air and water. It's going to zero. And as humanoid robotization improves, we'll see the same with physical work, mainly also because we'll learn how to harness the almost infinite energy from the sun or replicate it here on Earth through nuclear fusion. And Hans smiling, but this is closer than you think. When you're saying 5, 10 years, if you look at the experts, they all said 2030. That horizon is coming, you know, closer very, very, very quickly. And
Before Stan gets the wrong impression, I'm very pro solar, pro nuclear, mate. That's why
exactly,
I smile,
yeah,
man. We need
yeah.
more energy chat.
No,
On
it's. I mean,
Brainfood Live.
it's happening, and actually, AI is helping us with that as well. And same goes for healthcare with AlphaFold and these sort of things. A lot of people don't realize in our industry that 3 weeks ago, Google launched a model that improved itself. A model improving itself, it's almost as we as humans improving our DNA. So we are legally not allowed to genetically engineer, but these models are making themselves smarter without any engineers supporting them. And you know, the speed at which that will influence development of this technology will usher in a world where you will not objectively be able to tell the difference between a human or an avatar, or even a robot or an avatar, because human skin, human impression, facial expressions, just the texture of everything is becoming so indistinguishable. So we'll need legislation around that for sure. We'll need legislation around that. But that's what we're heading towards. So everything you just said, Adam, like within now and not that long of a time, someone will join a Zoom call with you and understand you better than most humans could.
All
And it
right,
won't be a
Stan,
human speaking to you.
I've got a challenge for you, mate. I've got a challenge for you. Let's have a guess as to when the first like true artificial intelligence avatar appears on Brainfood Live. We're gonna get that thing on screen and we're gonna just have it as a guest. And let's see how they go. I think that's is that a decent measure, folks? Let me know in the chat what you think. When do you think it's going to happen? Is it 12 months, 4 months? It will at some point. It will be fascinating to see how that works.
I'd love to build that. give technology a little bit of time. I'll ping you when the tech is there. When I think, you won't be able to distinguish it, we'll build it on our platform.
Rap has given us 12 months before this happens. Okay, Stan, listen, we're going to let you go. We're going to see Stan in CIPD next week. So make sure you swing by the stand. I will actually be on the stand as well. So get yourself to Festival Work. I think it's really cool and important. Actually, I had a good conversation with the president of CIPD a couple of weeks or so ago, Chloe Smith. I didn't realize she was actually the former Minister of Work and Pensions, would you believe? But she's got great plans with regards to what she needs to do for basically UK unemployed, underemployed people. So I'm going to meet with her, I think next week earlier on the 8th, I believe, and we'll have a chit chat there as well. So I think all of this stuff is super important. Okay, Stan, listen, great to see you, mate. Hang on the rest of the call. We're going to bring on George and Madeline. We're going to talk about VC investment. Topic all of us will be super interested in. Okay, good stuff. And by the way, Tracy, you're quite right with your commentary on this. We want to make sure human interaction is part of the parcel. But Adam, you make the right point. Like, why? You know, like, we've got to ask the tough question. Like, why do we think humans should be in the loop? Is there a solid reason for that, or just
Tracy could be completely right. She could be completely right that we should be thinking about AI as something which augments us as humans rather than replaces us. But I don't know if there's actually any valid reason why that should be the case. It feels morally correct, but I don't know.
Well, it may not be a business reason. Like, we might have to rethink what a business is all about. Because if it's all just optimizing for profit, for instance, then you can imagine a future where you do blast off all the payroll and make sure there's no human beings working at all. I mean, that's a possible future. But is it a future we want? In which case, maybe businesses have a different type of purpose, so like an additional purpose that isn't necessarily just a collateral issue. So something to talk about. Maybe Madeline's got an opinion on this, but let's first introduce Madeline. Madeline, obviously, I would imagine most people know who you are already, but if for the folks who don't, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me back. Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Lorano. I'm an analyst. I am the founder of a company called Aptitude Research, and we do research on HR tech. And happy belated birthday, Hung.
Oh, thank you very much. I've failed to really, I've realized the inefficiency of not actually making a big deal of my birthday, because you actually have to be handling all of the belated wishes like days after the fact. But I do thank you very much, Madeline. I really appreciate it.
Was it a big one? Was it a big one? Was it a big number?
They're all big ones, mate.
It was a big number, wasn't it? I know it was. I just realized it was a big number.
Well, the thing that I loved about your birthday is that it was like viral on every social channel that I'm on. It was like, there's a million pictures. And I was like, I meant to do a post too, because I have good pictures of us, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
No worries. Next time, Madeline, I expect a LinkedIn post from you on my birthday.
It was a big one. I've just double confirmed that. I didn't send you a present or anything. Sorry, but like, what a massive milestone.
That's because you're a terrible person, Adam. We know this in advance. Anyway, we have George LaRock here on screen. George, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, George?
It's great to see you all, and happy birthday, Hung. You beat me to it, Madeline. I had that in my notes also to make sure I said that. And did you just have a vendor on whose vision would result in him selling more software? That's amazing. I'm shocked. But anyhow, George LaRock. I'm the founder of WorkTech. We are advisors and analysts in the space. We look at all the growth capital coming into the space, but we look at it in the context of buyer trends. We look at adoption trends, and we look at workforce trends and help make sense of it. So happy to be here. Always happy to be here.
Yeah, and guys, I wanted to have this chat basically because I had this theory that, okay, where the money might be going in WorkTech might give us a bit of an indication as to how people are thinking about the future shape of organizations. You know, if you see sort of tons of stuff going into payroll a couple of years ago, international payroll, that was in the remote era, right? So suddenly the deals of this world and remote.coms were getting billions. And it was like, okay, that tells us that maybe companies are getting geographically dispersed. That's actually quite an interesting thing to observe. And then we had Zoom, you know, valuation going through the roof. It's all going digital. Okay, so what's happening in 2025? That's the sort of analysis I want to check on. But let's have a baseline. Where are we with WorkTech in general, in terms of investment now compared to what it was 2024 and then 2023? Is more or less going in? Like, where are we with all of that? Maybe George, we'll go with you on this first. I think you tend to have a look at that type of size of sort of investment. Sort of that's just scope, really, isn't it? So let us. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's counterintuitive to what most people perceive my answer is going to be. So we're at this point in 2025, we're about 3 billion globally in capital, growth capital coming into the space across all WorkTech categories. That is on track to exceed 2024. Which puts it, it would also exceed 2023. It is on track to be, if you sort of forget about 2021, which was the frenzy, and the first half of 2022, which created just, we did like 18 and 13 billion in those years. That was unheard of. Big years previously were 5 billion, and so it's counterintuitive given the economic climate, and a few things are happening. The investment continues to get more global. The U.S. is far and away, leading, but I continue to see investment coming in from many other countries. In WorkTech, we have a more healthy early stage investment than if you're looking at. It's important when you're looking at the large sort of VC data, reporting, that you always take a grain of salt and come and look at something like WorkTech's data that focuses in on our categories, because outside of WorkTech, there's sort of it's a dry period right now for early stage funding. In WorkTech, in TA Tech, for example, about half of the funding this year so far has gone to early stage. That's pre-seed and seed. I'm not even including Series A in that conversation. In the rest of the market, it's nowhere near that. So I think we're, I'm not saying everything's rosy. I'm not saying everything's, fantastic. It's still difficult to raise money in this climate. And the deals that are hitting the market today have been worked on for 6 months, 9 months. Nobody's going out with a pitch deck and raising money in 30, 60 days anymore. That just doesn't happen. And the requirements for raising money, things like you need, who would have thought, revenue, customers. You need some proof of adoption that is in the bank, is something that, because we can develop so much more rapidly now, because we can get to market faster, investors have shifted their calculus a little bit. So I think overall there's still it's a great opportunity for folks in this space to help push the future work forward, but it just it's the numbers look good, but I would wouldn't say, again, it's not all rosy. It would be a false signal if anybody looked at it and said, we'll be able to raise, quickly or more efficiently because of the current climate.
George, sorry if you said this and I missed it, but like, could you break down in terms of money going into WorkTech, like what's talent acquisition as a share of that, and how does that compare to previous years?
So this year, at this point this year, calendar year, we've done it's just under 3 billion. It's 2.98. I'll call it 3. Human capital is always every now and then talent acquisition back in the frenzy time would eke out ahead of human capital management, which includes core HR, payroll, et cetera, HRIS. That's 2 billion of the 3 billion. Talent acquisition is about 525 million of it. Now, when you hear that in this audience, you might say, "Oof, that's a quarter of the HCM." But I'll tell you that last year, this is big news for talent acquisition, because last year there was very little. That was more than we did all of last year in talent acquisition, venture capital. So HCM really carried the freight last year. Talent management, which I separate at the top, is just over 400 million, 411 million. I can go down into subcategories as well and tell you what categories are getting in any of those top categories. We track currently, over 60 subcategories, and as they emerge, they're added and tracked once there's some, persistence to it.
I think we would like to see that, George. I wonder whether you could fish around for some visuals. You could help us to have a look of sort of where the distribution is on those, like, further segmentation. But let's bring whilst you're doing that, let's bring Madeline on this. Do you disagree with George's diagnosis on this, Madeline? What's your view of it? We know all analysts kind of share some data, share the sort of general worldview, but you might have different frameworks, you might have different categories. Different types of companies may belong in different buckets, for instance. How are you seeing things from your perspective, Madeline?
Yeah, I never disagree with George. So I definitely, and he knows, he tracks all this. He has all the data. So it's so fascinating to me to hear first that talent acquisition, the investment this year is more than, anything that we even saw last year. And I agree 100% with the comment around none of this started now. Like, everyone raising money right now, this has been in the works for a long time. They might have had start and stops during this period, but this has kind of been an ongoing thing for a few years. And for a lot of companies, I think what goes hand in hand with this conversation is all of the George isn't going to like that I call it this, but consolidation in the market and rumors of consolidation, because I think companies are pivoting from, okay, we want to raise some money and we want investment, to, okay, we're for sale. Everyone's for sale, but they're for sale now and they really don't want to be in this market anymore. And they're looking for an exit, whatever that might look like. So there have been so many rumors around who's acquiring who, big, acquisitions happening from the big HCM vendors in talent acquisition. And that rumorville, George and I text about this all the time, is circulating quite a bit. But I do think these conversations go hand in hand.
Yeah, and we'll talk about M&A a bit later on down the track, because that's obviously a big part of our conversation also. Let's narrow focus down onto the segmentation side, like where are companies getting investment? And I'm kind of constantly get surprised by this, because I've seen companies where I thought, look, there's no chance of that getting any money. Then suddenly I find that actually they've raised some money and then they've exited, and it's like, okay, great. Obviously I know nothing. So I'm kind of really interested to know from your view, like, what is actually getting the investment? What are investors actually excited by? George, any sort of more forensic sort of analysis on your side in terms of the segments within the WorkTech?
Yeah, I'll pull up. So this, what I'm going to pull up is actually my Power BI interface to show you this current segmentation, and then I have prettier charts and so forth for prior to this this quarter. We haven't rolled up the quarter yet, outside of, tracking it through like June 3rd. But before I do that, I just want to say that the context of these subcategories and who's getting money. I look at windows opening and windows closing. And so those windows that are closing, for example, like everybody on this list, every vendor, if I pull up a vendor list, is AI forward at this point. Everybody's releasing some sort of agent, but they're including these startups. But the key is the window that's closing is on anyone who isn't owning either some serious complexity in the process, whether that's related to data or automation in the process. So if you're providing cool generative tools that are helping you, like, write better emails or job descriptions, all the platforms are releasing that, and that's not going, you're not going to sustain, and investors are they've been well onto this for a while. They're looking for real depth and value. And so that's, I think, the broader context that you need to take into this. It's about enablement with deep automation. And I disagree with Stan, and I agree more with Adam on the whole AI conversation, that while I believe automation is we are automating, and we have use cases now that show automation from start to finish providing really great results. You've got to have humans in the loop, because the thing that we didn't talk about was human behavior. So I can't hide my chatbot from you. I can't hide my avatar from you. And if I'm getting an answer from, it's a digital answer, at some point, I don't know anybody at my level or even at my daughter's level. She's in an internship right now that doesn't want to hear it from a person. So we've got to have humans in the loop. Anyhow, that's that. Let me share. Sorry to go on my soapbox there. Where do I do that? Here it is. Okay. So, this looks, yeah, there we go. All right. This is a treat for you, Hung. I don't usually share my Power BI screen with anyone. So can you see this?
Blessed.
All right. So this is year to date, and I've got about 8 years of data here. This is all categories, 103 deals. There's your 2.98 billion. It's broken down by round. It's broken down by country. And here are all the subcategories across all of WorkTech. So this is showing, it's rolling up. It's showing me a deal count. It's showing me the amount, per each. If I zoom in on talent acquisition, which is probably most relevant for this audience, we can see that, again, this story, it was refreshing to see talent acquisition bounce back. The top category, which shouldn't surprise anyone, is marketplace job boards. If I look at all of the data across all of WorkTech categories over the last 8 years, marketplace job boards should be number one. If not, it's number two. And it had been generally consistently that way. Now, I'm not talking just about transactional job boards. I'm talking about marketplaces that may be adding value in a contingent workforce and a direct hire workforce. It could be skills-based. It could be compensation-based. It could be coaching-based. But these are marketplaces that are offering an exchange of value. Generally at the core of that is the transaction of finding and getting matched to a job. We did have, across these other categories, I don't know if you have any specific questions, but nothing is shocking here to me, given the current state of the market. I would say things that are slowing would be the skills related stuff, like the skills marketplaces and skills data, and candidate tools. So specific applications or offerings that are focused purely on candidates. Granted, none of them are monetizing anything yet, but that's on the uptick at, seeing 5 of those in 5 months. That's 5 more than I've seen in most years.
Really interesting, George. So, do you have any sense as to what the change over time might be for these particular categories? Like, for instance, we're looking here at data from Q1, Q2, 2025. How does this compare, for instance, to where we were at in 2024? Have there been any kind of like interesting trends that you can see, or would that be overstating the case?
I can speak to some of those trends. Let me pull up a better visual for your audience from last. Did I stop sharing here? I think I wanted to. I don't know if that's.
No, I think you're still sharing.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and here we go. So you want to see, let's look at 2024. Okay. So in 2024, we saw 5.6 billion, 230 deals. So that gives you a sense, and this is right off the WorkTech, oneworktech.com website. You can see how it breaks down sort of year over year. Here's the frenzy that we talked about. As I get into the the categories and the subcategories, again, this was what 2024 looked like. We're above where we were in talent acquisition at this point last year. Last year was very reactionary to the job market and even more so the economic signals. When I look at these category investments across all of HR tech last year, I don't have a talent acquisition. This is the top 7. I don't have a talent acquisition category that is on the list. And in that, that 500 million last year, we saw still for talent acquisition, marketplaces were leading the way, but had dropped down on the overall list to about number 10. I don't know if you want me to get into the Power BI interface to drill in even closer to last year's talent acquisition categories, but it's generally fairly consistent with AI being, even last year was sort of like electricity. Everybody had an AI story. You couldn't get funding without it.
Yeah, really interesting. Folks, if you have any questions to ask George, do sort of make sure you make use of the Q&A feature on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to go to that at the end of the show. And very interesting to see where we're at on the funding side. I've got a kind of a premonition to say, okay, we've got loads of candidates surging. That's been the case for 12 months or so or more. Surely that means that we're going to get more interest in companies that are going to try and help companies assess that high volume. Maybe we're going to see some greater interest in ID verification type tech, those types of services. Are we seeing anything of that type? Madeline, I see you nodding your head on this. Have you sort of, what's your sense of the market dealing with these 2024, 2025 issues?
Yeah, I think the candidate fraud area is going to be a huge opportunity. And I don't see enough. I feel like I don't see enough tech providers moving into that space. I mean, we've seen some CRMs kind of launching agents or other areas to kind of tackle that. I mean, assessment's been huge this year too.
One second, Madeline. George, I think you're still sharing the screen, so I wonder whether you might want to stop that. Go ahead, Madeline.
And then assessment's been big. And I think the other thing, you brought it up, Hung, and then we just saw it on George's slide, is around payroll, the investment that went into payroll a few years ago, but still continues. I mean, that conversation around the payroll market is crazy to me. And it's all SMB, right? All of that, all these providers that have kind of come out with all this investment or are growing like crazy, they're growing in the SMB market. And I think we're going to see more of that in TA, where there are providers in the SMB market going after either big platform plays or going after specific areas. And I think, I don't know, I'd be curious what you all think of this. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the investment going.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Ashby, look at some of these providers that have kind of come out of nowhere and just exploded.
Where do we think we're going to be with? I mean, it's interesting you talk about sort of the development rates that we're seeing with artificial intelligence. Like the biggest beneficiaries of AI, you could argue, are software engineers, software developers. And that's obviously sort of changed the way in which, we've only seen George only. That's probably my fault. Let me see if I can get us back to the right screen. George, you're looking beautiful, man.
I would appreciate that.
You know, yeah, we probably don't want anybody to go solo here. Okay, let me fiddle with this. Are you seeing me now? How do I even do this?
Like a pop video.
Hey?
It's like a pop video.
I know it's like it's not meant to be doing this, but I don't seem to be able to return to state. So whilst I'm fiddling around with this, Adam, you mentioned you've got something to say about investments. So why don't we go with you for the time being whilst I figure this out?
Well, let me tell you a couple of observations from the other side of the table. So I am fundraising at this point, and so I'm going out to lots of VC firms to pitch them a deck and pitch them a vision. And I am almost certainly going to raise from people I already know. And I've never had as many rejection messages, like immediate rejection messages from venture capital firms saying simply, not interested in the category. Your space is too crowded. There's too many people trying to solve the same thing. Recruitment productivity tools are already a red ocean, stuff like that. And it's immediate. And I've done this in a couple of companies now, and I've raised investment several times from angels and from venture capital, institutional, and I'm fairly confident I'll do the round. But at the same time, I mean, honestly, like people I think it's very unlikely I'll do the round from people I don't know.
What's your theory as to why? Like they're telling you straight up they're not interested in the category. So what is the category and sort of, what
recruitment technology? Recruitment.
Just generally recruitment.
Yeah.
Don't want to be in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to I'm not going pitching a unicorn idea. I'm like, so, the likes of Andreas and Horowitz and stuff. I'm not bothering talking to any of these types of investors. It's the ones who are looking for more slightly shorter term and probably more mid-tier kind of, future upside. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting a lot of responses, which is good. I'm getting a lot more responses than I have done in the past. So people are actually getting back. So we talk about candidate experience and getting ghosted. Well, great. We're not getting as much VC ghosting anymore. I'm actually getting, the courtesy of the responses. But yeah, I mean, the most important one I'm getting is not interested in the category. Now, there's certain like aspects of that around economics. Our industry is not the size of fintech or marketing tech or health tech. It's just not. There's not as many users in HR as there are in sales and marketing. So that's one element of it, and that'll be partially what strikes it out. But they're looking at the crowded space. I mean, we can see it every day. We can see some new product that's people are commenting on LinkedIn, and it's like incessant. The amount of people who can fix recruiting, because everybody knows all about recruitment because everybody's been a candidate at some point, right?
I think I'm not on those calls. I'm not in those meetings. I don't advise poetry. But from my seat, when I hear you say, recruiting, productivity, I think I, yes, it's harder to raise funds in recruitment overall today than it was, 2-3 years ago. But at the same time, recruitment is not a process that is supposed to just sit in talent acquisition. So I think owning that automation, where I've had an experience with taking an acquisition provider out to raise their seed round, getting them in front of investors. They've turned down some. And I think a lot of that from an agentic perspective, when you're looking at what you're taking to market right now, you've got to be, and I'm not comparing you to them. I'm saying this is the experience that I just had. And I think the key for investors right now is looking at how you're addressing sort of this at scale for the process, not just a particular function, especially when it comes to recruitment. I think those are the ideas that I'm seeing get a lot of traction, and I'm certain you're going to raise that round because one of the biggest keys in the whole process is the founder, and this is not your first rodeo, Adam. And I would put my money on you on that, but just that's what I'm seeing. Like I'm seeing a lot of tools, a lot of apps come to market right now from those founders that you just talked about. They're going to solve it all, and it's something I've seen 1,000 times. It's just this one has a little AI rubbed on it, and investors they don't have time for a lot of that. That's not what you are, but that's who you're competing with. All of that.
Yeah, understood.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I wonder too if some of the backlash on recruiting tech right now, or what you're seeing too, Adam, is exactly what George said. And all this agentic AI, all these solutions, nobody knows how to price them. They're going to wait and figure the pricing piece out. And I think for investors, that's not a place that they want to be in, of not knowing and how this pricing model will evolve.
Yeah, I think no one also knows what the right size team is anymore, do we? I mean,
Right.
part of the problem that just speaking to line managers more so than recruiters, it's like, okay, if I spoke to an engineering manager 3 years or so ago and said, look, I need to build a SaaS product that scales up to 100 million users. How many engineers do you need to build this thing? They could give me a number as to how many engineers they need. But now they're not sure, because AI might be able to do this now, or at least what portion of AI can do. How many engineers do I really need? It's hard to say. Therefore, that suppresses hiring demand. It means that they're not charging forward with a very clear ideas that actually I need these folks, because they're saying, actually, I don't know how many people I need. I think that's the same with sales. I mean, Stan came on right at the beginning and said, hey, we're building a sales agent. So if I'm a sales director, do I know how many salespeople I need in 2026? I'm not sure. We don't know sort of what the technology is going to provide for us. Therefore, we can't understand how to people it. And I think that's caused sort of hesitation in sort of firing up the headcount, which of course leads to companies not, maybe investors thinking, you know what, I'm staying clear of recruiting in general for the time being. Another theory, I wonder whether some of the investment coming into the WorkTech scene actually is there to kind of chop out a lot of the payroll. I wonder whether you've seen any of this type of idea where, we've got this thing which is kind of WorkTech, but in fact it does automate a huge chunk of what might have been, half a department. And therefore it's really a shuffling of the budget from the payroll to the technology. And that looks good from great for the founder of that technology business, maybe great for the investor also, but it kind of is not necessarily growth. It's like shuffling the money away from human salaries into technology services. Thoughts on this, George? Has that crossed your mind in any way?
Like Scotty AI, for example?
Yeah, I think so. I think frankly, that's basically one of the values.
It's exactly right.
And if you speak to any business owner, any CEO, if you could tell them, hey, listen, do you want to run, 100 million turnover business with 1,000 people instead of 10,000? They're going to say, yeah. That's if we're honest and we asked ourselves as CEOs, if you are your own CEO, would you prefer to run your business at this type of margin without carrying a large headcount? I think most of us would say yes. So I think it's very normal and we shouldn't shame people for it. But I just wonder whether if we can objectively observe whether that's part of the explanation as to, some of the investments we've seen in 2025, which, we're saying, looks like a bump in 2024, is actually eating stuff that eats into payroll. George, thoughts?
So eats into payroll at like a workforce planning.
Correct. It just reduces the numbers of people that might be hired.
Yeah, it's all very nascent at this point. So I haven't seen anything that is demonstrably helping anyone make decisions on, a digital approach in a function versus human. You've got a lot of the analytics players today, the Visiers and One Models, who would say that their data would help you, with that. You've got the workforce sort of labor, the Lightcasts of the world, who would say that they're looking at, skills availability, compensation, and available talent. We've got, I just did a briefing with, this is not where Hackajob was going, but they've really leaned in on, vetting of talent and even internal talent now using AI. And I think you can see a lot of these things coming together to start to create a picture, but it's pieces. It's not. I haven't seen a cohesive offering yet. Madeline, I don't know, what are you seeing? I mean, we're on some of the same analyst calls, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's something that, I mean, every CEO should be caring about, is who's going to be doing this work, and are we going to be using people, and then that does play into, Hung, what you're talking about. Where is this reshuffling of money coming from if we're now using technology and maybe not paying as much in payroll anymore? The one thing I saw that was very cool actually this week was Beamery's kind of pivoted a little bit and thinking about workforce strategy overall. I mean, it's really workforce planning, but it's broader than that. And they're looking at how they can help companies figure out that model of, who's doing the work. Is it going to be through AI and agents, through data, through people? So they're looking at, everyone's talking about skills intelligence or talent intelligence. They're looking at task intelligence, which is what are the specific tasks and the things, what is the work that needs to get done? And then who's going to do that work, and how do we help companies plan for that? And to me, that's a much bigger conversation than TA or HR. But it's a hard thing to get companies all on the same page to think that way and buy an HR tech solution to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we might be running into this strange scenario where a lot of the tech that maybe at one level of a company makes sense for it to be deployed, but it might not be in the interest of another level of a company to see it come in. So there's going to be a kind of a misalignment of incentives there. Super interesting. Okay, I've just noticed the time out of the way. We've got a flying through this call. Let's have a projection from the two analysts here. We're in the middle of the year, so we might as well forecast Q3, Q4. Where do you see investment in general? Where do you think we're going to end up, guys? And where do you think the distribution of those funds are going to be per segment within the WorkTech space? Madeline, let's go to you first. What's your best guess as the total number we might see in WorkTech invested into 2024?
I will let George take on the number piece because I'm sure I'll be completely wrong. He's tracking all this, but I can say the segments or the areas I think are going to be hot this year. I mean, I do think we're going to see more in SMB for talent acquisition. I think the assessment, whoever brought that, I think Hung, you brought that up, the interview assessment, candidate fraud piece is huge. I mean, companies are investing in that area, even if they're not investing in others. So I think that's going to be huge too. And I think we're going to see the agentic AI stuff play itself out, and we're going to see where there's interest from investors there. And there's got to be some reckoning on the pricing, whether that's consumption based or whether that's, rolled into something else. I don't know.
What do you mean the reckoning? Meaning the pricing is too high, too low? I mean,
Or
I'm
it's just got to
seeing
be figured out. I think right now it's just like we don't know. Like even when I ask vendors, I'll be like, "Can you share your pricing?" And it's like very clear on all their products. And then they're like, "We've announced this new agent. We're not sharing that because we don't know." Is basically the message. And so you can't, like, they just have no idea how to price it. They want to let it play out a little, but that can't go on forever.
Yeah, really good. I heard that OpenAI wanted to roll out a PhD level agent and price that at $20,000 a month or something, like crazy number.
Crazy.
But they're also saying it is a PhD level worker, so it's effectively hiring that replacement. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see what it can do. I mean, I don't think we've yet to see a generalist AI agent do everything that, let's say, an elite human employee can yet do, even though clearly some super impressive, like quite narrow sort of feats that we've seen. And Stan shared some of those in the chat, which I would make yourself acquainted with. George, your thoughts? What's the big number towards the end of the year, and how is it distributed?
All right, my caveat is, barring any massive global economic, God knows what could happen, when we get off this call, right?
We're one tweet away, George. We this is the world we live in, mate. We're literally one tweet away from anything happening. You know what I mean?
So barring that, like with the current amount of craziness and uncertainty, I think we chug along and end up over. I'll be optimistic and say 6.5 billion, and it will surprise everyone. I think the key. So I things are shifting so rapidly in this space that I think it's a fool's errand to say it's going to be like one category or another. I agree with everything that Madeline said about those niche categories like assessments and so forth. And those are, but the key to any of those categories, and any category, any startup getting investment, any growth stage getting a further investment, is going to be their ecosystem strategy. And let me tell you why. Because every single platform, look at employees in this space, in the talent acquisition space, their recent announcement of their agentic strategy, which they call a companion strategy. You are going to need to fit into the platform model in order to sell anything. Why? Because at the enterprise level, while they're getting great pressure to look at AI and select the AI, HR is back in 1999, 2000. They are on the bottom of the list. It starts with sales. It starts with marketing, manufacturing, product, operations. IT is supporting every other functional area before they can get to an evaluation and a purchase for HR. So you need to come in through a platform. You need to be deeply integrated and aligned with those platforms on their agentic strategy. If you're selling an enterprise standalone brand new platform, Godspeed and best of luck. SMB, you are additive in this world. So I've got half an HR person today. You give me these tools. Now I've got 1.5 HR people. And that half of that operations person who's running my payroll now has insight to my performance process and anything else that we're concerned with. Middle market, it's going to be really messy, and it's going to be based on your ideal customer profile, your ICP, who and where you're selling. And that's what investors are going to be looking at. If you're going to raise any money, you're going to have to be talking about who you plug into, how you're going to help them sell more stuff, and how you're going to sell more on the back of it. So that's my view to where the money's going to go. It's going to break down like that, while we're still shifting every day as to, now we're heading in this direction or that direction from an agentic perspective. So that's my 2 cents for you.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, everybody. Really a great conversation. I mean, I'm swimming in deep water whenever I'm speaking to people that know about investing and fundraising and all the rest of it. So thank you for the education. Okay, we've got to bring it to a close here. So let's thank our guest, Madeline Laurano. Wonderful to see you as always. George LaRock, thanks for chiming in and showing us your wonderful dashboards. That's probably going to come into high demand in future again. Adam, great to see you, mate. We'll hopefully catch up with you soon. And everybody else, thanks for watching. Wonderful to have you. We'll be back next week. As ever, we are going to be talking about leadership lessons for a global TA team. So if you are a person that basically manages or wants to manage a geographically distributed team in different countries and different locations, time zones, and what have you, what are the lessons we can learn from people who've done that? We've got some amazing leaders who have done that sort of task. Jennifer Candy's coming onto the show. Sandy Gruel's coming onto the show. We've got a bunch of other people that basically are currently at task managing this group. So if you want to achieve the top of your game and managing it globally, that's the show to tune into. We're on next week for it. Okay, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Cool, mate. That was all right, I thought.
Good show, rammed with insights. Love to hear from Madeline and George always.
You said the most interesting thing, though, Adam, I thought. Just your observations at the coalface. I do value that.
VCs aren't really interested in recruitment tech. They're just not. I think if you're operating at the Beamery and the Eightfold level, in fact, even if you're operating at the, if you're doing a Series A round at like 10 million plus, you've got, that's what you're looking for. Then you've got proven traction or whatever. It's the early stage where we're at, where there's too many options. There's too much noise. It's really very difficult. So yeah, I think it's almost certain that I'll raise from people I already know, people who have got confidence in me. So
yeah, and I count myself as one of those, even though I'm not going to invest. And the only reason why I don't is purely to keep my neutrality. But I otherwise would, because I think
you're also not an institutional investor, and therefore not invited to invest.
I'm also skint, guys. So there's another reason I don't have the money to do it. But mate, good luck with it. And of course, anything I can do to help, let me know. In fact, what kind of person, what kind of institution is the right organization to get involved with poetry? Have you got
straightforward seed, pre-seed stroke seed venture capital fund, probably EIS fund, that type of thing. So we'll see. I mean, I had investors in Candidate ID who are probably quite likely to want to invest in poetry. So we'll see. That just comes down to negotiating on numbers and things like that. If that kind of thing was going to happen.
Fair play.
So
all right, mate. Listen, let me let you go. Hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah. I'm off to Metopia right now. Basically, the world's best barbecue. So I'm off there with my colleagues, afternoon out at the meat festival, basically.
You're going to come back like red-faced and steaming, having feasted your way through it, but crack on. You got to do it, mate.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll see you next Friday. Cheers.
See you later.